My name is Karush Koilu. This is brought to you by Zayuk. Zayuk is a property management platform that gives stakeholders a zero trust environment to handle their payments, their contracts, their inspections, various different types of property items that are really aimed at re-leveraging them and their property owners. As a leader within an HOA, such as a board member, you take on a lot of liability and don't have much reward. You get to, make hugely important decisions, but at the end of the day, um, it's not as if you're getting paid and you're gaining some great experience for sure. But again, there's no payment. It's a volunteer based position, and for that reason, it's best to lower your liability. It's great in the sense what's going on in your community. If you're responsible and good, you can set a path for your community gr- that is hygienic financially, keep your assets in place. But you still take on a lot of liability, and it's not necessarily worth it. I personally don't know if it's worth it. Um, it depends on the state of your community. If your community is not, I mean, you're very likely not going to face any repercussions as long as you're not doing anything insidious. But for people who don't want to be so involved, you need some stake. You need some guardrails, and the best defense is a good offense. The best way to guard yourself from malicious, fraudulent activity with the investment you made, specifically, say you own within an HOA, you want to get on the offensive there. You want to make sure you have things like direct financial connections. Why? Because you want to make sure no one is making out fraudulent transactions. That usually happens one for one. And really, the only way you can guard it is direct financial connections or stable coins. But that's not in the books for HOAs at the moment. But direct financial connections, where you're going to get your history of transactions, very important, very helpful, and it gives you the tools to understand your property. Not even to understand, it just puts a security gate. It's one of many security gates. Cybersecurity is all about layered defense. And the way you stack that is through the offensive. You go up, you say, all right, if someone does this, how are we going to guard from it? You have direct financial connections with AI budgeting and AI anomaly detection. Boom. It's just, it's, um, it's going to be something we bring in very soon. I think within the next 2-3 months. We brought in our ticketing AI, very good. We're going to bring in our smart contract AI for validation. We're going to bring in the budgeting, AI budgeting, and it should be pretty incredible. It should be pretty incredible. It really enables a lot of smart payments. So earlier today, I posted about a Carlsbad ADU. Here, I'm going to just read the Cal Matters. This was posted on April 6th by Ben Christopher of Cal Matters. I'm just going to skim through it. HOA 1, legal decision issued. San Diego County judge ruled that condo owner who tried to convert his garage into a rental unit over the objections of his HOA. This ruling brings an end, at least for now, to a year-long legal tussle. The quasi-private governments that enforce neighborhood rules for more than one-third of California residents. Mystic Point Homeowners Association. This individual sat on the board. The dispute is more than a neighborhood scale drama. 10 years overriding local restrictions on new residential development. The 2019 state law voided an HOA restriction on accessory dwelling units, small residences located on the same property as a larger existing home. He wanted to turn his condo garage into a rental, but the HOA countered that its own ban on using garages for anything other than car storage made that a no-go. This individual, backed by the opinion of a planner at the state's Housing and Community Development Department, believed the law was on his side and went ahead and broke ground. The HOA then sued. They argued that the 2019 law might very well prohibit many types of HOAs from placing restrictions on ADUs, doesn't apply to condo developments. That was zoned for single family residential use. That makes sense. If you have a lot, you put the ADU on your lot, but if you don't, that's not exclusively allow single family homes, but townhomes and small condos as well. It doesn't apply for that case. Was a very highly technical ruling. In my, personal opinion, it seems like a logical ruling. The ADUs, I mean, there's a clear separation. There's still problems with that. Parking being the number one. If you add these massive ADUs and there's no sufficient parking, you're about to have huge congestion, which is going to affect everybody in the neighborhood. So there's still issues. Legislation had intended to include condos. It could have easily made that language more explicit, the judge wrote. Without the intervention of the state, though housing regulators and state attorneys general's office regularly step in with local governments quash a development project. He and his wife spent more than $100,000 in combined construction costs and legal fees. So that's an interesting item. And people don't want to go to war with their HOA. They just want to get things done. But sometimes some bitterness arises, and then you do that, and it's really not worth doing. It's going to hurt the HOA, it's going to hurt you, and you have less, you don't want to fight a corporation. Okay. Whoa. Uh, Let me check something out here. Wow. Um, I didn't know about this, but in October there was a woman, Grand Lake woman, and this is Grand Lake, Oklahoma. She was declared missing after failing to attend a scheduled meeting. The police discovered her body locked inside the vehicle in a rural county. An investigation revealed that $60,000 was missing from the local HOA, which I believe she had. There were allegations that she had embezzled money from a Grand Lake HOA, and she was then declared missing, and um, financial account of Holiday Shores Property Association. There's no living suspect to criminally pursue regarding the fraudulent transactions. She was an employee by the HOA and had access to the group's financial account and debit card. Wow. 144 unauthorized fraudulent ATM withdrawals from March 24th, 2022 through September 17th, 2025, totaling $65,000. Wow. She had 2 knife wounds to her chest and a knife in her lap. The autopsy ruled the death a suicide. The daughter challenges the report. And the chief medical examiner initiated an investigation into the death. Wow, that's extreme. And it goes to show you that a zero trust environment is good for everybody. The management companies don't want to have to deal with that. It is not going, yeah, I'm not sure what to say. That's extreme. That's really extreme. I'm going to save that. Do. All right, so let's delete that. Okay. So that's one thing. These look like interesting articles. Houston homeowners question HOA fees transparency in third ward community. Cracked section of pavement condominium community in South Union issue residents say has gone unrepaired for months. Rolgam Place in Houston's third ward. Problems like that reflect a larger concern whether their HOA is using their fees appropriately and being transparent about where the money is going. One resident who has to be identified only as K messaged Cron, which is the provider, which I'm reading their article, as part of the Behind Closed Doors series on Houston housing issues. Lived in the community for more than a decade, previously served on the board, and they don't oppose paying dues. They just want clearer answers. And this is the issue. It's all about leverage. It's all about re-leveraging yourself. The situation is complex, and it probably is complex. The association were facing financial strains. The board was projecting a $45,000 deficit for 2026 and discuss potential assessment increases or special assessments. Deteriorating fencing and damaged pavement have persisted even as they continue paying dues. Yeah, it's crazy. Some officials are worried about Maine's drinking water infrastructure. States' water mains are nearing the end of their lives. Difficult to predict where or when the next one will fall. Let me just see. Modernizing water infrastructure, how utilities are cutting losses and improving reliability. Not uncommon for utilities to lose up to 40% of their treated water. Average family uses more than 9,000 gallons per year. Pump roughly 15,000 gallons to deliver the amount. Not just inefficiency, wasted energy, chemicals, and capital. Decades of underinvestment in underground infrastructure and the slow pace of change common in many public systems. For years, the industry was focused on expanding supply while the systems delivering the water have deteriorated. Utilities across North America are now taking a more aggressive, multi pronged approach to reducing water loss and improving performance. Digital tools such as advanced metering infrastructure, leak detection, real time monitoring are giving operators unprecedented visibility into their systems. Utilities recognize tech is not enough. Traditional piping systems fail most often at the joint, the weakest point in the network. Modern systems such as HDPE fundamentally change that equation. Through heat fusion, joints become stronger than the pipe itself, eliminating leaks at their most common source and creating fully restrained, leak free systems. Let's see, HDPE. Okay. This seems like pretty standard stuff. Here's something. Direct relief tackles the long-term costs of hurricanes with microgrids for Florida healthcare centers. Hurricanes can cause deaths in numbers 300 times higher than immediate deaths. Direct relief is deploying 9 microgrids. I'm wondering what these are. Aren't necessarily caused by the short-term effects of the storm flooding, for example. They're the disruption to people's lives, undermine their access to healthcare, and hurt their finances. Direct relief humanitarian aid organization investing $5 million to deploy microgrids at 9 community health facilities. Let's see, what are in these microgrids is my question. 501 hurricanes in the U.S. between 1930 and 2015 the average hurricane caused 24 immediate deaths, but storms on average led to 7,000 and 11,000 additional deaths in the 20 years after the landfall. Low-income residents seek these healthcare centers are particularly vulnerable. So I'm just curious what these microgrids look like. All right, I'm going to just check out these about microgrids. I'm just going to ask Gemini. Power Island, interconnected national grid. Microgrid is a localized energy system. It's kind of an island. Main utility grid goes down. The microgrid can disconnect and keep the lights on for its specific area using its own local power sources. They're comprised of generation sources, solar panels, wind turbines, generators, diesel or gas, storage systems, including batteries, usually lithium ion, or flywheels, store excess energy to be used when generation is low. I've never heard of a flywheel storage system. Okay. That seems pretty technical. Okay, it looks like China does this. Okay, flywheels. The controller, this is the brain, sophisticated software platform that manages the flow of energy, deciding when to charge batteries, when to pull the main grid, and when to switch to island mode. Loads, these are the consumers, the buildings, hospital, neighborhood. They are usually customized. A microgrid in Arizona will be heavily relying on solar, where ones in Maine might prioritize things like tidal energy. If a location is densely wooded, it might rely on fuel cells or high-capacity battery storage. That makes sense. Hospital requires 100% reliability. A remote village might prioritize cost-effective solar and long-term storage. Military base focuses on cybersecurity and hardened infrastructure to resist physical attacks. This makes sense. And I've actually deployed microgrids before in a trailer, and I've deployed microgrids across trailers and hard sites. Um, okay. So from there, this is from the New York Times. The China's electro state is poised to win the war, is poised to win from the war in the Middle East. China companies dominate manufacturing, including panels, cables, transformers, batteries. They were expanding abroad for decades. China has poured hundreds of billions of dollars into green energy, making it a cornerstone of the country's drive for energy independence. Blocked foreign companies, wind turbines, electric car batteries to ensure the Chinese companies could grow into giants. This is the right time for a shock like the war in Iran to subtly catalyze even more investment and interest in renewables. China companies increasingly produce the most affordable and most efficient renewable energy and grid storage technologies. You're not going to compete with China at this point, but you could in 5 years. Philippines said it was working to bring 22 new renewable plants to shore up grid stability. Brazil took bids in late March for the construction of new power plants. Battery manufacturers, renewable energy equipment makers were already raising money in Hong Kong to fund an overseas push, anticipating a surge. That's very interesting. This is interesting. Large sinkholes opened Saturday morning near some apartments and townhomes in Urbandale, Iowa. Police were dispatched shortly after 11 a.m. near Camelot Drive and Buckingham Square. No reported injuries or property damage. One resident said a pothole developed in the days leading up to the collapse. I felt the right side of my car kind of dip in the ground a little, and I was like, oh, I've never felt that pothole before. Another resident noticed sinking sidewalks before the collapse, saying they figured it was going to be a sinkhole. Authorities believe a drainage issue beneath the roadway may have caused the sinkhole, but an exact cause is unconfirmed. The area is near the old coal mining sites, common throughout central Iowa. The Associate State Geologist for Energy and Minerals with the survey said the network is a shallow underground mines across central Iowa, which can weaken over time. Growth in EVs has not stopped. And with the war in Iran, people are maybe reassessing whether they should get an EV. Infrastructure is still on the mind of lawmakers in Ohio Department of Transportation. They recently announced 64 EV charging stations throughout the state. National Electrical Vehicle Infrastructure Program will be awarded to select developers to install and operate the stations located at businesses. Most EV owners do the majority of their charging at home. The new stations will give them options for charging while traveling farther. There are now 126,000 electrical vehicles registered in Ohio. Wyoming Electric Utility dumps wind and solar and long-term planning. Rocky Mountain Power's parent Pacific Corp updated its long-term planning document, shifting its previous upward trajectory for new wind and solar throughout its 6-state service region. No plans to add more wind or solar facilities in Wyoming, Utah, Idaho, and California from 2027 through 2045. Due to a repeal of major portions of the Inflation Reduction Act through the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. What a meme. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act repealed the Inflation Reduction Act, which significantly phases out or eliminates highly impactful tax benefits primarily for renewable solar and wind generation resources. All right, everyone, I'm going to head out. Thank you so